They called it the creature that remembered no master. Generals had shouted commands at it, priests had sung to it, emperors had stood before it with crowns of fire, and still the beast tore them all down. Its chains were for show, its cages rebuilt after every escape. The arena floor was littered with the bones of those who thought they could bend it. So when the gates thundered open for the next trial, and a human walked into the sand, the crowd didn't roar. They laughed. A soft-skinned prey animal against the Empire's most unbreakable monster? It was no contest. It was cruelty dressed as spectacle. But the human didn't flinch. He didn't even raise his hands. He simply looked at the beast the way no one ever had, not as a challenge, not as prey, and waited. What happened next would silence the arena for the first time in centuries. The creature was older than most bloodlines. Its origin was written in genetic scars, in the bone memory of predation. Some said it was grown in a lab deep within the black deserts of Vorex Prime, others that it had survived extinction events on multiple planets by killing its way to supremacy. Its true name had been lost, replaced by titles: the Butcher of Seldros, the Iron Maw, the Last Beast. And yet no title ever fully captured it. The thing stood over 3 meters tall, its back hunched with muscle striations like steel cables. Its hide bore scars older than the current emperor's reign. 4 eyes burned with amber light, rotating independently in a skull plated with natural armor so dense it had shattered high-frequency rounds. Each of its limbs ended in clawed appendages, powerful enough to shear through grav armor. It had survived electrocution, gas attacks, mind probes. They once tried to starve it into compliance. It tore through 3 guards, chewed through the cell gate, and killed the handler who brought food 4 days later. After that, they stopped starving it. Now it served only one purpose: the trial of the arena. A tradition older than the empire itself. Warriors, students, princes, anyone seeking prestige in the outer provinces was sent to face the beast, not to defeat it. No, that was never the goal. The point was to endure, to survive, to face what could not be tamed, and live long enough to be dragged out before the final blow. Some tried to fight it, most ran, a few knelt, none succeeded. Except once during the high cycle of Emperor Jarn, when the Emperor himself descended into the arena to command the beast using the ancestral sigil. He was flanked by 10 of his royal guard. The sigil flared. The beast looked at him, growled once, then killed 3 guards before the rest pulled the Emperor from the sand. Since then, it had been tradition. No one, not even the crown, could command it. In the arena, instructors always said, "You are nothing," and the beast knows it. So, when the name was drawn and read aloud, Cadet James Alder, Earthborn, Human, no one thought it meant anything. The cadets gathered early that morning, lined up in the viewing tiers beneath the canopy of banners. The sky above was stark and wide, the sun beating down on the ancient stonework of the arena floor. James Alder had no military pedigree, no biomods, no armor inserts. He hadn't placed first in any weapon trial. Instructors called him steady. Observers called him bland. He was, by all metrics, forgettable. Until the draw. When his name echoed across the arena, cadets began murmuring. The human? Why bother? Will they even send in the medics after? The announcer's voice, usually charged with drama, faltered for the first time in years. Entering the arena, Cadet James Alder of Earth. There were no cheers. Just the quiet, anticipatory noise of an audience hungry for spectacle, the kind that ended with blood in the sand. James stepped into the light. He wore no armor, no helmet, just standard-issue cadet fatigues, breathable and gray, rolled at the sleeves. He walked with even steps, not slow, not fast. His eyes didn't search the walls, didn't scan for exits or weapons. He simply looked forward and walked to the center of the ring. The sand crunched beneath his boots. Some instructors, watching from the high platform, shook their heads. Unarmed? He doesn't even understand what he's walking into. The upper-tier scholars, those tasked with tracking behavioral patterns during trials, adjusted their sensors. One of them activated the Dominance Pulse Array, a machine that tracked threat display, posture, and emotional energy across both combatants. It hummed to life. Numbers began to flicker across its screen. Still no weapon. Still no armor. Still walking. At the arena's far side, the great bronze gate began to rise. The chains groaned, steam hissed, and then came the growl. Not the bark of a challenge, nor the roar of a predator. Something slower. Older. It stepped into the light like a storm emerging from a cave. Muscles rolled beneath its skin. The sand shuddered beneath each step. Every breath it took came out in clouds of hot air that steamed from its nostrils. It saw James, locked eyes, and charged. The audience leaned forward as one. The motion of 1,000 bodies inhaling at once filled the upper tiers. The dominance pulse spiked. Its indicators flared bright red as the beast's posture hit full aggression, claws raised, shoulders low, maw wide. But James didn't move. He didn't flinch. Didn't raise a hand. He just stood there. The machine faltered. The pulse flatlined for a half second, then surged, then glitched. Because the human's output hadn't spiked. No adrenaline, no combat trigger, no fight or flight. Just standing, calm. The beast thundered forward. And then with less than 4 meters between them, it slowed. Its pace stuttered. The claws didn't swipe. The head didn't lower to strike. It stopped. A heartbeat passed. Then another. The beast stepped closer, not lunging, studying. Its nostrils flared. It growled a low, guttural sound. But not a threat, a question. James met its eyes. No expression, no fear, no challenge. And then, impossibly slowly, the beast dropped to one knee. Its claws curled in, its head lowered. And it sat, not collapsed, not defeated. It sat at his feet. The arena went silent. Not gasping silence, not stunned silence. Total silence. Not even the wind moved. The dominance pulse array pinged 3 times, then shut itself off. The announcer didn't speak, couldn't. One of the cadets vomited. Another began whispering a prayer from her homeworld, one used at funerals, not victories. On the viewing platform, the Emperor's envoy rose from his seat, eyes locked on the beast that hadn't knelt in 400 years. It was seated, head bowed. At the feet of a human cadet, no one moved. From the Emperor's envoy down to the lowliest cadet on the upper benches, the arena remained frozen in place. The beast that had dismembered titans, torn through mechanized warframes, and defied every living command, knelt calmly at the feet of an unarmed, unarmored, soft-skinned human. The dominance pulse array tried to reboot. Failed. Again. Failed. Its final output logged a paradox. Subject A, total dominance. Subject B, total submission. Cause, unregistered. Response, system anomaly. Back on the sand, James Alder still hadn't moved. He stood exactly as he had when he walked in, his hands relaxed at his sides, his breathing shallow but steady, his gaze fixed on the creature that had charged him with enough force to flatten a cargo crawler. And now it was sitting, quiet. He didn't speak, he didn't touch it. He just waited. Above, one of the instructors finally broke the silence. "What in the name of the moons just happened?" Another muttered, "He didn't even blink." A third instructor, Resin, turned from the railing and tapped his comm. "Medical standby. Prepare extraction for both subjects. Alert the envoy. I want eyes on that cadet now." No one made a move to open the gates. No one was sure it was safe. Because for all its silence, the beast remained a storm, waiting to move. Its breathing had slowed, its body language relaxed, but its eyes were still sharp, watching, unmoved by the growing stir in the stands. It wasn't afraid. It wasn't tamed. It had chosen. The whispers began immediately. In the East Tier, a Luxari cadet hissed, "That thing killed my uncle during the Vorga trials, shredded him in less than 4 seconds. He was a tactician, a noble, and it bowed to a human?" The Kyrell twins, from a species bred specifically for elite military leadership, both stood in disbelief. "No threat display," said the elder twin, "no pheromonal projection, no kinetic readiness." The younger snarled, "He didn't even look dangerous." Across the arena, the murmurs changed tone. They were no longer mocking. They were afraid. When the transport finally arrived, hovering just low enough to not stir the sand, the handlers on board refused to drop the nets. The standard retrieval procedure for the beast involved reinforced restraints, sonic pulse disorienters, and an anti-aggression field. None of them were used. No one wanted to be the one to re-cage it. Not while it sat like that. Not while it sat still. So James walked. Slowly, without looking back, he stepped past the beast's side. It didn't flinch. Its eyes followed him for a breath, then turned forward again, waiting. He paused near the edge of the sand, turned slightly, met its eyes again. No words. Then stepped into the lift. It rose, sealed. Only once he was gone did the beast move. It stood, looked at the crowd, then turned toward the exit tunnel. It walked through the same gate it had always stormed from unchained, uncommanded, and disappeared into the dark without resistance. The silence that followed lasted 3 full minutes. James sat in the med lab without complaint, no restraint necessary. His vitals were steady, pulse low, blood oxygen normal, no spike in stress hormones. If anything, his readouts showed a pattern closer to deep relaxation than battle preparedness. "Tell me what you felt," the attending physician asked, adjusting the scanner over his chest. James lifted a shoulder. "I felt aware." "Afraid?" "No. You knew what was coming through that gate, didn't you?" "I knew what they thought was coming." The doctor tapped a key, activating a deeper brain scan. "You didn't use pheromones, no drugs. Your adrenal response was muted. Are you on any kind of neuroadaptive protocol?" James shook his head. "Nothing off prescription. You can check the logs." The physician stared at him. "How did you know it wouldn't attack?" "I didn't." "But you didn't move." "I didn't need to." The doctor leaned forward, genuinely puzzled now. "Why?" James looked at him and said, "Because fear changes nothing." Up in the Envoy Tower, a different kind of interrogation took place. A dozen counselors, instructors, and behavioral analysts crowded into the observation chamber. The Emperor's envoy stood at the center, hands clasped, face unreadable. "You've watched it kill on command, reject order, defy rank. It has never hesitated," one analyst insisted. "Until today," another whispered. "Could be a scent trigger, something unique in human sweat. Could be tone, posture, perhaps the creature detected a non-threatening presence and defaulted to passive protocol." "There is no passive protocol," Rezin said from the edge of the group. "That beast was programmed to respond with dominance, always." "Then it was recognition," said the envoy, finally breaking his silence. Everyone turned. "Recognition?" asked the medic. The envoy nodded slowly. It saw something it understood, something familiar, not biologically, psychologically. "You're suggesting that thing saw itself in the human?" "No," said the envoy. "I'm suggesting it saw something older, something it was bred to overcome but never forgot." Silence. Then, fear? The envoy turned toward the viewing window. "Maybe not fear," he said. "Maybe respect." Back in the cadet dormitories, James was met with silence. No cheering, no jeering. Just eyes. Watching. Evaluating. He walked through the common hall with a data pad under his arm, paused briefly to refill a water flask. When one of the Carell twins stepped aside to let him pass, James nodded. "Thanks." The twin didn't respond. But he moved. That night, in the lower east corridor, someone etched a word into the stone near the arena gates. A single word, carved with care, just deep enough to catch light. Respect. It wasn't graffiti. It was prophecy. And the instructors knew it. Because the beast hadn't yielded to threat, power, or force. It had yielded to stillness. To something that didn't command or beg. To something that simply waited. By dawn, the archives had been pulled. Every known instance of the beast's behavior across systems, cycles, empires was recompiled and dissected by the Imperial analysts. Combat logs, security footage, even recovered helmet cam from dead champions. Every pattern told the same story. Aggression, defiance, brutality. There was no record of it sitting. Until now. The Empire's internal command grid lit up with encrypted chatter. High-priority tags from the Emperor's personal court, directives, surveillance requests, orders for psychological profiles on every human cadet in the Academy. The word came down fast. Isolate James Alder. Evaluate. Determine threat class. But the threat wasn't him. Not really. It was the choice. 3 days passed. The beast didn't return to its containment cell. It hadn't escaped. Security confirmed it moved through its tunnels calmly, returning each night to the shade of the inner gate arch, just beyond the arena's edge. No restraints, no orders, just waiting. They tried to lure it back. Food, bait, even cadavers from the morgue, though such a thing was barely above sanctioned taboo. The beast ignored them all. And every morning, like clockwork, it sat near the arena gate, facing the sand, waiting for James. They tried to deny him access. He went anyway. He didn't force the gates, didn't challenge anyone. But on the 5th day, when arena maintenance teams were inside and the doors hung half open, he simply walked in. No one stopped him. He crossed the sand, the same way he had during the trial, quiet, steady. His boots left the same even trail across the packed grains. The beast saw him instantly. It stood, massive, towering, but did not charge. Instead, it took 2 steps forward, then dropped to its haunches, and lowered its head. From the observation deck, analysts scrambled to measure everything. Thermal resonance, unchanged. Neural activity, elevated, but not erratic. It was not aggression. It was recognition. James walked to it, and then doing what no one dared before he reached out and placed a hand on the creature's head. No command, no gesture of dominance. Just a moment. Contact. The beast let out a deep, low exhale. Not a growl, not a threat, a release. A sound of rest. The monitors spiked. The dominance pulse rebooted once more, trying to recalibrate its entire framework. It registered the interaction, logged it, and crashed again. The Empire's finest machine could not translate what had just happened. It didn't end there, because the beast began refusing all other combat trials. It ignored handlers. It growled at weapons. It stood, silent, only when James approached. On the 10th day, during a sanctioned trial with a candidate from the Ashkar bloodline, descendants of planetary warlords, the beast turned its back on the challenger. No engagement. No roar. It walked to the gate and sat, staring into the corridor where James had last been seen. The candidate, enraged, tried to provoke it, shouted, fired blanks, even slashed a blade across its flank. The beast didn't flinch. But, when the candidate tried to step past it, it moved. Not fast. Not violently. Just one paw. One low, rumbling warning sound. The Ashkar backed off. The trial was called off. The next day, James was summoned again, not to the arena, not to the medbay, but to the Emperor's envoy. The chamber was smaller than he expected. Just a simple metal room, cooled by the natural ventilation systems that pulsed like breath through the deeper halls. A circular table, one chair. The envoy stood near the wall, hands clasped behind his back. No guards, no escorts. You made it kneel. James said nothing. It has never done that. Still nothing. Dad, you understand why they are afraid, don't you? James nodded. The envoy gestured to the seat. James didn't move. I don't want to control it, he said. Then what do you want? He paused, considered the question. To be left alone. The envoy tilted his head. You've created an anomaly in our system, a fracture in a narrative that has lasted for centuries. Every ruler, every warlord, every bloodline has used that beast to measure courage or fear. I didn't come here to break tradition. No, said the envoy, stepping forward, but it chose you. That's more dangerous. James looked at him for the first time. Really looked. And said, that thing isn't dangerous because it kills. It's dangerous because it sees, it watches, it understands what's true. The envoy narrowed his eyes. And, what is true, Cadet Alder? That power doesn't scare it, James said, but cruelty does. The room fell quiet. I didn't challenge it, I didn't command it, I just stood in front of it without pretending to be more than I am. And that was enough. The envoy didn't respond for a long time. Then, you'll be allowed to see it, but under restriction. No press, no demonstrations. No stories. The Empire won't let this become a legend. James gave the smallest hint of a smile. Then it's already too late. A week later, the beast was still at the arena gate. Still waiting. It didn't roar, it didn't pace, it simply sat, like it had nowhere else to be. Cadets passed it carefully, always at a distance. Instructors stopped citing it as an example of raw terror. Even the architects of the training protocols admitted something unprecedented had happened. The arena itself changed. The air inside felt different. Not lighter. Heavier, as though the weight of centuries had shifted, just slightly, off its axis. And no one knew how to name what had taken its place. But they all felt it. Because the beast had never followed fear. It had followed respect. And once it found it, it never looked away. They tried, of course, to rewrite the moment. The arena's historical logs were redacted. Official statements described the beast's stillness as a deviation during environmental stress, and James Alder's trial was labeled a non-engagement event. Even the footage was edited, blurring the moment the beast sat, cutting the scene before the hand on its head. But the silence couldn't be erased. You couldn't silence the cadet from Narn Vass, who woke every night from a dream of the beast sitting like a loyal sentinel. Or the instructor from Rigel 3, who admitted in a closed-door meeting, it bowed to him. I saw it. You can burn the logs, but I'll never forget. And you couldn't stop the beast itself. Because every day it returned to the gate. It didn't eat, it didn't sleep in its cell. It simply waited, unmoving, staring toward the passage that led to the dormitories. As if it expected James to return, even when he didn't. It wasn't domesticated. It wasn't submissive. It was loyal. And loyalty, when chosen not programmed or enforced, was more dangerous than any chain ever forged. They sent psychologists next. 3 teams, cross-species experts, some from military backgrounds, others from royal science enclaves. They studied the beast from observation vaults, tried vocal mimicry, gesture replay, pheromone synthesis. Nothing changed. It only reacted when James entered the chamber, and even then, not with submission, not with enthusiasm. Just stillness. A quiet that felt almost reverent. James was ordered to undergo full psychological assessment. Again. This time, with a neurodynamic interface, live telemetry, and a panel of 5 evaluators watching through glass. His vitals were flawless, his hormone levels unremarkable. Memory scan, clear. But one data point kept returning, circled again and again by the lead analyst. His threat response. Baseline humans spike adrenaline at the scent of predation, increased heart rate, sweating, a flush of cortisol. James didn't. Not even when shown raw footage of the beast's previous kills. Not even when placed in a VR simulation where it charged him at full speed. The only time his vitals shifted? When the simulation showed the beast collared. Only then did his breathing quicken, a small spike, but unmistakable. The analyst asked him about it after. Why then? She asked. You didn't react to violence. You didn't flinch when it roared, but you responded when it was bound. James said nothing for a while. Then, softly, because I know what that looks like, not on beasts, on people. The Emperor never visited, but he sent a message, a single sentence, transmitted only to the envoy, who relayed it in private. Even monsters know honor when they see it. No reply was sent. None was needed. The Academy adjusted. It had no choice. The beast no longer participated in trials. Its presence alone disrupted dominance tests, destabilized power hierarchies, and corrupted fear assessment metrics. The entire foundation of the arena, as a proving ground, began to tremble. They tried to repurpose it as a symbol, a monument, a passive specter. but it refused to cooperate with anything except James. One afternoon, an envoy from the Corran Ascendancy visited the academy. They were known for cultivating fear-resistant soldiers, and requested a demonstration of the beast. The instructors obliged. The Corran champion was permitted to enter the arena with weapons of her choosing. She selected a magnetic lash and mirror blade. The beast watched her, then stood. Not aggressive, but present. Waiting. She circled, tried a low posture, emitted dominant frequencies in Corran speech. The beast remained motionless. She attacked. The instructors screamed, tried to halt her. Too late. The beast didn't retaliate. It stepped once, then another, and stopped. Let her come. She struck the first blow. The blade sliced shallow across its side. It didn't move. The second blow. Deeper. Still no motion. On the third strike, it let out a low, vibrating exhale. Not pain. Not submission. Disappointment. Then it walked to the gate. Left her standing in the arena alone. She collapsed minutes later, not from injury, but from something deeper. Why didn't it fight me? She asked, over and over. Because it had already chosen. James sat beside the beast one morning, after a quiet walk across the sand. It had followed him now, never closer than a few paces, but always behind, always watching, like a shadow that had learned patience. He sat down. The beast lowered beside him. For the first time, he spoke to it. No, I'm not like them. The beast blinked. I wasn't born for power. I wasn't made to lead. I don't have bloodlines or glory. The beast breathed slow, deep. But I've watched good people get crushed under things they didn't choose, and I never wanted to be one of the ones holding the weight. Silence. Maybe you didn't either. The beast lowered its head into the sand, not asleep, not resting, just with him. That image, unofficial, grainy, captured from a distant surveillance feed, spread through the outer channels in whispers. It wasn't a broadcast. It wasn't a message. It was a moment. The beast, silent beside the human, not guarding, not serving, simply present. No one could fake that. No empire could spin it. In the years that followed, the arena was retired. The trials stopped. The empire shifted to different models of assessment, ones less obsessed with fear and domination. They never spoke of why, but everyone remembered, especially those who had seen it with their own eyes. James Alder graduated without honors, by choice. He declined the medals, turned down the special postings, refused offers from the private fleets and the emperor's court. He went to the outer colonies, helped build things, talked to people who never saw the inside of command towers. The beast was offered containment transport, special habitat construction. It refused every attempt, and followed James. In the end, they stopped trying to explain it. Because what could they say? That the galaxy's most feared predator, engineered through centuries of violence, chose to sit beside a man who did nothing more than see it? That it turned away from battle, not because it lost, but because for the first time, it didn't need to win? That a human with no weapon, no armor, and no command in his voice walked into an arena and showed the Empire the one thing more terrifying than power? Stillness. They used to say the beast would kneel to no one. And they were right. It didn't kneel. It sat at the feet of a man who offered nothing but understanding. And that was the moment the galaxy realized. Respect is not commanded. It is chosen. And the creature that once refused empires had made its choice.